The Kentucky fields were sun-baked. Families worked in the blazing heat of the day. Come harvest time, they would share their crops with the landowner. It was a hard-scrabble life. Garret Morgan's parents had once been slaves. They were free now, but the family still worked the fields as hard as ever. One day, Garret stopped hoeing to stretch. I want more than this, he thought, gazing at the worn-out farm he'd lived on all his life. Garret Augustus Morgan was born in 1877 in Paris, Kentucky. He was the seventh of 11 children. Each one labored in the fields from the time they could hold a hoe. Garret left school at a young age. He wanted to earn a living, but he had only two choices: work on the land on the railroad. Garret didn't want to do either. Work on the land or on the railroad. Garret didn't want to do either. So at 14, he headed north to seek his fortune. In 1895, Garret was settled in Cleveland, Ohio. As he swept floors in a clothing factory, he noticed that the belts on the sewing machines often broke. Garret decided to make a stronger belt. When he did, the boss was so pleased that he gave Garret a new job: sewing machine repairman. Garret was on his way. By 1908, Garret had his own house and sewing machine shop. Soon he and his wife, Mary Ann, opened a tailoring shop too. Okay, Lyric, it's your turn.
Okay. One day in his new home workshop, Garret was concocting a cream to prevent sewing machine needles from making scorch marks in fabric. Little did he know that he was about to stumble upon his first invention. At the end of the day, Garret wiped his cream-covered hands off on a piece of woolen wool. By morning, the fuzzy threads of the cloth were smooth and straight. Amazing! I've got an idea, Garret says to Mary Ann with a twinkle in his eye. Not on my curls, you don't, she replied. Garret decided to try an invention on his neighbor's dog, an Airedale Terrier. Airedales have tightly curled hair, not fur. The cream worked. The neighbor didn't recognize his own dog. At bedtime, Garret coated his hair with the cream. By morning, his hair was smooth and straight. Garret what does that say?
You can sound it out.
Patented his invention in 1910. He called it hair refiner. He called his new business the J.A. Morgan Hair Refining Company.
J. That's not a J.
G.A.
Okay, keep reading.
Garret made other hair care products too, such as dye called black oil hair stain, a hair grower, a curved tooth comb to straighten hair. Garret's hair products were sold well. With the money he made, he was able to spend more time on his true passion, inventing. In 1911, a shocking story hit the front page of America's newspaper. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in New York City had caught fire. 146 workers were dead. Most of them were teenage girls. Over breakfast, Garret read the headline: Women and girls trapped in 10-story building, lost in flames, or hurl themselves to death. Fires were common in cities where the buildings were made out of wood. After the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 had killed hundreds, destroying homes and businesses, it took years for workers to rebuild the city. When firefighters entered a burning building, they were often overcome by smoke. It was difficult for them to rescue those who were trapped inside. Garret decided to invent a hood to give firefighters a fighting chance.
Okay, so that's turn.
Once at a circus, Garret saw an elephant reach its long trunk out the tent flap to breathe fresh air. It gave him an idea. In a fire, smoke, dust, and poisonous gases rise. The air at ground level is breathable. Garret's safety hood, the forerunner of the gas mask, included a long tube that reached to the ground, just like an elephant's trunk. A second tube allowed the users to exhale air. A wet sponge filtered the smoke and cooled the air. The hood was made for fireproof canvas.
Made of
Fireproof canvas. Garret called his invention Morgan's safety hood and smoke protector.
Okay.
Tested his hood to make sure it. Garret tested his hood to make sure it did exactly what he wanted it to do. When he burned chemicals in a tent, the enclosed area was soon thick with smoke. Garret walked into the tent wearing his safety hood. He stayed for 20 minutes long. He didn't cough or faint. Garret was able to breathe just like an elephant in the circus tent. The hood worked. Garret
Filed.
Garret filed for a patent for his invention in 1914.
Next page.
Next page. All right. Sales of the safety hood were disappointing. Garret sold one or two to fire departments, but most people weren't interested in buying it when they found out its inventor was black. In America's South, Garret hired a white man who pretended to be Mr. Morgan, while he acted as his assistant. Then one day, a disaster, right? Correct? Okay. A disaster put Garret's invention onto the front pages of the newspaper.
What happened? Oh my goodness. I gotta find out what happened.
It was the middle of July. Night in 1916. All over Cleveland, people slept soundly until kaboom! A mighty explosion rocked the city. What was it? A bomb? Was it an earthquake? No, but it was a disaster. Workers had been digging a tunnel under the Lake Erie, to bring fresh water to Cleveland. Their equipment had lit a gas pocket.
Hit.
And hit, that's what I said, hit a gas pocket. The explosion ripped through the tunnel, leaving more than 30 men trapped underground.
Next page.
The tunnel was filling fast with smoke, dust, and poisonous gas. None of the rescuers could stay down long enough to see where they were going. It looked like the trapped men were doomed. Suddenly, one of them remembered seeing Garret Morgan demonstrate his invention. "We need Garret Morgan's safety hood," he exclaimed. Sorry, I didn't say that right. "We need Garret Morgan's safety hood," he exclaimed. Men raced to Garrett's home to wake him up. Garret brought his brother Frank and 4 hoods, or gas masks, to the scene. Garret, Frank, and 2 other men entered the tunnel. Would the masks work? Was it too late to save anyone? Garret slowly emerged, pulling out one of the workers. "He's alive!" Frank came up with another. The masks worked. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it like that. Okay. One by one, rescuers saved as many men as they could. Soon, police and fire departments across the country were ordering Morgan's safety hood. The city of Cleveland honored Garret with a gold medal for his heroic efforts. Garret's invention developed further would save thousands of soldiers from chlorine gas in the trenches of World War I. Uno.
Wow, I guess we shouldn't be breathing in too much chlorine then, huh? Chlorine gas in the pool.
We don't really breathe that in. We can't breathe chlorine, you know that, right? 'Cause in the water.
Yeah, but it's a gas. It comes out. That's why we smell it.
That's why underwater we just blow out. Okay. So this is for somebody else to read because I just read a bunch of pages.
Okay, so Lyric is going to read that last page.
Me!
In the early days of the automobile, there were no traffic signals. Drivers drove wherever they found room on the road among pedestrians. Bicycles and animal-drawn wagons intersections were especially dangerous. Garret was the first African American in Cleveland to own a car. One day while driving, he witnessed a horrible crash between a car and a horse-drawn carriage. He couldn't get the accident out of his mind. Garret was convinced he could do something to improve traffic safety, so he invented a traffic signal device. Garret's device was a T-shaped pole that featured 3 positions: stop, go, and all stop. The all stop signal stopped traffic in all directions so that pedestrians could safely cross the roads. Garret Morgan was one of the earliest inventors to apply for and acquire a patent for a traffic signal. He had come to the rescue once again.